Hi, this is Anna, and welcome to the Sompo Deep Cut. Today we're looking at the Loire Valley, one of the most structurally demanding regions in the diploma curriculum. Not because it's difficult, but because the examiners use Loire questions to test whether you can move effortlessly between climate, grape variety, viticulture, winemaking, and commercial logic. The Loire stretches from the cool maritime influence of the Atlantic to the cool continental central vineyards. And that long east west arc is exactly why Loire questions often appear in comparative framings. Muscadet versus ice wine, Coteau du Leon versus South Africa, Loire Sauvignon versus Marlborough or Western Cape. This region rewards clarity and classification. Let's start with the big picture. The Loire has four major zones: Pays Nantais, Anjou Saumur, Touraine, and the Central Vineyards. Each one has its own climate, its own grapes, and its own reasoning patterns. If you can anchor which grapes thrive where and why, you already have half the exam answer. Let's walk through them one by one. Pays Nantais. This is maritime, cool, and humid, with spring frost and September rain always in the background. That environment shapes melon, a hardy but early budding variety that resists powdery mildew but is vulnerable to downy mildew and botrytis. Because melon ripens early and produces high yields, canopy management here is about managing disease pressure and achieving ripeness in a climate that doesn't guarantee it. Winemaking defines the style: neutral vessels, cool ferments, no malolactic conversion, and surly aging to add texture to what would otherwise be a very light bodied wine. This is the foundation of Muscadet Surly: high acid, light body, low intensity, inexpensive to mid priced. And anytime Muscadet appears in the exam, remember yield limits, Surly rules, lees aging, and the region's reputation recovery after frost and overproduction. Anjou Sommer and Touraine. Moving inland, you lose the Atlantic's influence and enter a cool continental range with more sunshine and also more vintage variability. This is Chenin and Cabernet Franc country. Chenin buds early, ripens late, and ripens unevenly. So quality relies on site selection, canopy management, and picking in multiple passes for sweet wines. Its versatility is the reason it appears repeatedly in past papers: sparkling, dry, off dry, demi sec, and intensely sweet botrytized styles. Cabernet Franc is frost prone and sensitive to canopy shading, but its mid ripening profile fits the climate well. The style ranges widely from light and fruity to concentrated and age worthy depending on maceration time and soil type. Clay limestone soils give the most structured examples. Sweet wine logic is crucial here. Coteau du Leon, Bonazou, Quartz des Champs. Botrytis relies on morning mists from the Leon and warm, dry afternoons. Higher potential alcohol requirements and lower yields mark the premium tiers, and declining global demand for sweet wine shapes the market pressure. Rosé production is also examinable. Rosé d'Anjou, Rosé de Loire, and Cabernet d'Anjou, each with different grape compositions, yields, and typical styles. Central vineyards. Now we move east into Sancerre, Puy-Fumé, Quincy, Rouy, Monetou-Ceylon, the benchmark for cool climate Sauvignon Blanc. This is a continental climate: cold winters, warm summers, frost and hail risk, and surprisingly high rainfall. Long daylight hours plus low heat produce Sauvignon Blanc with high acidity and restrained mineral driven fruit. Canopy management is critical here. Too much shade leads to bell pepper. Too much sun risks overripeness and losing typicity. Picking dates matter immensely. Winemaking is intentionally simple. Cool ferments, neutral vessels, blocked malolactic for freshness. High end producers may use old oak or extended lees work for texture. And remember the soil triad: Coyote for aromatic early drinking wines, Terre Blanc for structure and aging, Silex for smoky minerality. This soil to style mapping is examinable and elegant to write. Loire questions often ask you to compare styles or explain why Loire wines differ from versions in South Africa, New Zealand, or Canada. For example, Loire Sauvignon Blanc is leaner, more mineral, and more restrained compared to Marlborough's high UV passion fruit driven style. Premium South African Chenin Blanc often shows richer fruit and more oak influence compared with the Loire's high acid, more linear styles. Muscadet sur Lie versus Canadian ice wine tests your ability to contrast climate, grape physiology, and winemaking technique. Loire is rarely a standalone question, it is a comparison region, a reasoning region. The Loire's commercial landscape appears frequently in exams. Sancerre dominates exports by both volume and value. It is the region's commercial anchor, consistent style, global brand, and strong reputation. At the other end of the spectrum, sweet wines face shrinking demands, causing producers to reduce production and pivot towards dry wines. Muscadet works to reposition itself as terroir driven and value driven after decades of overproduction and market decline. Negociants handle half of the Loire's total wine sales, an important point when explaining cost structure, market reach, and producer decision making. And across the Loire, frost and hail losses make supplemental negociant activity essential for financial survival. Here's how I study the Loire. I keep four things very clear. First, which grapes thrive in which zones and why the climate makes sense for those varieties. Second, viticulture and winemaking choices by style: Muscadet sur Lie, Chenin Blanc, Cabernet Franc, and Sauvignon Blanc. Third, the commercial story: the winners, the pressure points, and the market realities. And finally, the comparative logic, because Loire questions often hinge on what makes Loire different. If you want the more detailed written breakdown with past paper patterns, soil to style links, Shannon logic, and commercial context, I've linked the comparison article under this episode. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.